Jessica Monroe thought marrying billionaire Alexander Kane would be a dream come true, but their lavish Dubai wedding turned into a nightmare when secrets were revealed, leading to a shocking murder on their very first night together. The Crime Scene presents a new page of crime, a new mystery, a new shock case. Jessica Monroe floated through the grand hall of the Dubai ballroom, feeling like she had stepped into a dream. Every detail of her wedding was straight out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, exotic flowers filled the room with fragrance, and gold-plated accents gleamed in the soft light. The city skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a surreal glow on the crowd of well-dressed guests. Her gown, a cascading cascade of ivory silk and lace, hugged her figure perfectly, making her feel regal, untouchable. Alexander Kane, her new husband, stood at the altar looking every bit the billionaire she had imagined. Tall, sharp, impossibly polished in a tailored suit, his expensive watch catching the light, he exuded power and confidence. Every guest whispered about the perfect couple, the ultimate fantasy wedding, the fairy tale brought to life. Yet beneath the perfection, a tension lingered. Jessica knew Alexander had a reputation. Rich, controlling, obsessive, a man who valued tradition and purity above almost everything else. Hours before, she had caught glimpses of his sharp eyes scanning the bridal room, examining every detail of her appearance. Though the crowd clinked champagne glasses and laughed, she felt a subtle chill, an unease creeping through her chest that no amount of luxury could mask. She tried to push the fear aside, focusing on the smiles around her, the glittering decor, and the fact that this was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She had dreamed of this moment for years, the grandeur, the opulence, the feeling of being on top of the world. But deep down, a whisper of dread lingered, warning her that perfection often hides something darker. Tonight, she would learn that even the most beautiful weddings can harbor deadly secrets, and the fairy tale she had walked into was about to shatter in ways she could never imagine. Jessica couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest, even as the wedding celebrations carried on around her. Alexander's reputation had always preceded him, wealthy, powerful, and dangerously controlling. She had brushed off the rumors, telling herself that the man she loved was different, that the charm and sophistication were real, not a mask. But subtle moments during the ceremony and reception planted seeds of doubt. The way he scrutinized her, the sharpness in his eyes whenever someone glanced too long at her, the tense way he held himself around the staff, all of it hinted at a deeper obsession, a need to control every detail of her life. Jessica's past, once private and carefree, had suddenly become a source of fear. Before Dubai, she had lived freely, partying, dating, exploring life without restraint. Alexander's strict expectations about tradition and purity were worlds apart from her own history, and the thought that he might discover the truth made her stomach twist. Even as guests laughed, clinking glasses and praising the couple's fairy tale wedding, Jessica felt trapped under the weight of secrets she had always kept buried. Every glance from Alexander felt like a test. Every subtle question or remark about her past or her habits sent shivers down her spine. Jessica realized that one small slip, one overlooked detail, could unleash a side of him that she didn't understand and couldn't control. The fear wasn't just about anger or disappointment. It was about a man whose obsession with control could quickly turn dangerous. That night, surrounded by luxury, applause, and the glittering Dubai skyline, Jessica understood that the perfect wedding she had dreamed of might be the stage for something far darker. She was living in a gilded cage, and the walls were closing in faster than she could escape. After the ceremony, Jessica and Alexander retreated to the honeymoon suite, a sprawling penthouse high above Dubai's glittering skyline. The room was dripping with luxury, silk sheets, golden accents, and a private terrace overlooking the city lights. Every detail was extravagant, designed to impress, to make her feel like royalty. But as the doors closed behind them, the magic of the night began to twist into something oppressive. Alexander's demeanor shifted. The charming, smiling man from the ceremony was gone, replaced by a tense, calculating presence that made her chest tighten. He moved through the suite like a predator, eyes scanning every corner, as if the luxury itself couldn't distract him from his obsession with control. Jessica felt her confidence falter under his gaze. Every gesture, every laugh, even the way she adjusted her gown, seemed to be measured and judged. The silk sheets and champagne flutes couldn't mask the unease that settled deep in her stomach. Luxury, she realized, had become a gilded trap. The city outside sparkled like a dream, but inside, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Jessica's mind raced as she tried to predict his mood, trying to anticipate the slightest misstep that could trigger his wrath. She felt the invisible weight of the rules he lived by pressing down on her: tradition, purity, obedience, and she knew she was walking on dangerous ground. The very man she had married for love now radiated something chilling, a silent warning that nothing about this night would go as she imagined. By the time the champagne glasses were empty and the music faded, Jessica realized she was trapped. The honeymoon suite, a symbol of wealth and happiness, had become a cage. The city outside glittered, but inside, a storm of fear and anticipation brewed, and she understood that one wrong move could turn the night into a nightmare she couldn't escape. Late that night, Jessica tried to relax, hoping the tension between her and Alexander would fade with the luxury and privacy of the suite. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Alexander had been unusually quiet, his eyes scanning her every move, his presence heavy and suffocating. She excused herself to freshen up, hoping a moment alone would calm her nerves. But when she returned, the atmosphere had shifted. His gaze was sharper, colder, and she noticed his attention lingering on her belongings in a way that made her blood run cold. Without warning, Alexander began examining her personal items. Photos, messages on her phone, even private notes she had never shared. He sifted through them with a methodical intensity that left no corner untouched. Jessica's heart pounded as she realized he was searching for proof, any sign that she had not lived up to the rigid standards he demanded. Panic clawed at her chest as she realized the danger she was in. The charming, powerful man she had married was disappearing behind a mask of rage, replaced by someone she barely recognized, a man consumed with obsession and control. Her mind raced as she tried to think of a way out, any explanation that might save her. She had never seen such intensity in a person's eyes, the cold calculation of a man who believed his world had been violated. Every instinct screamed that reasoning was useless. The luxurious suite, once a symbol of happiness and love, now felt like a gilded prison. She was surrounded by wealth, elegance, and beauty, but none of it could shield her from the storm building within Alexander. In those tense hours, Jessica understood a terrifying truth. The man she had married was capable of extreme violence if provoked. The night, meant to celebrate their union, had transformed into a dangerous dance, and she knew that one wrong move could shatter her life forever. The tension in the honeymoon suite had reached a breaking point. Alexander's obsession with control was no longer subtle. It had become an oppressive force that made Jessica's chest tighten with every breath. She tried to move cautiously, hoping to avoid drawing his attention, but it was clear he had already set his mind on uncovering every detail of her past. The air felt electric, charged with the kind of fear that makes time stretch, where every second feels like a trap closing in. Jessica realized she was trapped in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury that now felt suffocating rather than comforting. Alexander's eyes never left her as he circled the suite, scanning, calculating. He went through her things methodically, photos, notes, messages, as if he were piecing together a puzzle to confirm his worst suspicions. Jessica could feel the rage building in him, a cold, sharp intensity that left no room for negotiation. She tried to stay calm, her mind racing for any strategy that might protect her, but it was already too late. The rules he had set for their marriage were absolute, and she had unknowingly broken them. The room, once a sanctuary of romance, had transformed into a battleground. The glittering city skyline outside seemed irrelevant compared to the storm brewing inside the suite. Every glance from Alexander carried judgment. Every gesture hinted at the danger he posed. Jessica's fear became almost tangible, a living entity pressing against her chest, reminding her that escape was nearly impossible. In those moments, She realized that the confrontation was not just about betrayal or disappointment. It was about power and control. Alexander's obsession had escalated into something lethal, and the luxurious suite that had symbolized the beginning of their married life had become the stage for a deadly climax. Jessica knew that her fate hung in the balance, and one wrong move could cost her everything. The night that was supposed to mark the start of Jessica and Alexander's married life had turned into a nightmare. The tension in the honeymoon suite had reached a point where it was almost suffocating, the air thick with fear and anticipation. Alexander's obsession with control had escalated into something terrifyingly real, and Jessica could feel the weight of it pressing down on her. Every move she made, every glance in his direction, seemed to provoke a sharper edge in his gaze. The luxury around them, the silk sheets, golden accents, and panoramic city view, no longer offered comfort. It only highlighted the stark contrast between the fairy tale setting and the horror that was about to unfold. Alexander's fury exploded in a flash, sudden and absolute. The charming, polished man who had stood before guests hours earlier vanished completely, replaced by a figure driven by obsession and rigid expectations. Jessica tried to reason, tried to deflect, to appeal to whatever remained of his sanity, but it was futile. The suite, soundproof and isolated, became a trap with no escape. Every door, every window, reinforced the inescapable reality. She was at his mercy. The struggle was brief but intense. Jessica fought with every ounce of strength she had, but Alexander's control and sheer power were overwhelming. In a few horrifying minutes, the night of celebration had become a crime scene. The lavish decor, the sparkling city outside, the champagne glasses and silk sheets, all became the backdrop to a tragedy that would shock the world. By dawn, the suite was eerily calm, the opulence masking the violence that had occurred within. Alexander called it an accident, but the scene told a different story. A young bride's life had been brutally cut short. Her dreams of a happy marriage ended before they could begin. What was meant to be a night of love had become a chilling reminder of how obsession and control can turn deadly in an instant. By the time Dubai authorities were alerted, the story had already begun to spiral into a shocking international case. Jessica's family had grown worried when she failed to contact them after the wedding, and a missing person report triggered a full-scale investigation. Surveillance footage from the hotel captured key moments, showing Alexander pacing the suite in ways that suggested agitation, and officers quickly traced inconsistencies in his story. Forensics revealed chilling evidence, traces of a struggle, fingerprints, and signs that Jessica had been violently overpowered in the suite. The investigation uncovered the brutal truth behind what had been presented as a fairy tale wedding. Alexander's obsession with control and purity had escalated into lethal violence. The authorities pieced together the timeline, reconstructing the moments leading up to the murder. They confirmed that the opulent suite, the silk sheets, and panoramic city views had masked a horrifying crime. Every luxurious detail of the honeymoon suite had become part of the evidence, the lavish backdrop to a tragedy that no one could ignore. News of the crime spread rapidly, both in Dubai and internationally. Headlines screamed about the billionaire groom, the young bride, and the shocking violence that had erupted in the heart of the city. Reporters and viewers were captivated by the contrast, a life of wealth and privilege ending in a crime so intimate, so personal. Alexander's empire of power and control, once admired by many, became synonymous with obsession and cruelty. Court proceedings revealed the horrifying depth of his obsession, with prosecutors presenting forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and the meticulous planning that had led to Jessica's death. Alexander was arrested and eventually sentenced to life without parole, his public image destroyed, and his wealth unable to shield him from justice.